All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the May 22nd meeting of the Ames Community School District Board of Directors. I will call the meeting to order and entertain a motion to approve the agenda. So moved. Second. Moved by Winfrey, seconded by Becker. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. And we will now read our purpose statement, and we would invite anyone in the room to read it along with us if you'd like to. The Ames Community School District commits to equity and empowers every individual to reach their full personal and educational potential. Thank you. And the first item on our agenda this evening is our public hearing for our 2022-23 proposed budget amendment. So just to make sure everyone's clear, this is for the current school year 2022-2023. But if you would like to speak on the budget amendment for 2022-23, you may come up to the microphone. Okay, seeing none, we will close our public hearing and move on to our celebrations and recognitions. And first this evening, we have the Northcrest Community Donation, and we'll turn it over to Amy DeLashman.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Northcrest residents have a long history of generosity in the Ames community. In 2021, they received the award for Outstanding Group Philanthropist from the Story County Alliance for Philanthropy. Each year, residents identify a local nonprofit to support. The district is overjoyed to be the recipient of such a gift. Northcrest residents donated a total of $25,324 for the Hope Pantry in the Ames Community School District. Earlier this year, the Hope Pantry, which was located at Ames Middle School, moved to the district office. This makes the pantry centrally located in addition to two others that were just added this year at both Mitchell Elementary and Edwards Elementary. All pantries are available to students and families in our district struggling with food insecurity. In addition to food, the pantry also has small amounts of school supplies, hygiene, and household items. And we want to really express our appreciation to Northcrest for this amazing donation. Do we have a representative here from Northcrest? Why don't you come on up so we can thank you?
I'd like to say that the representatives, the young women leading the program, were the ones that convinced us to orchestrate the donation because they're wonderful.
Thank you so much to Northcrest. And next this evening, we have the Ames Community School District retirees, and we're going to all come up to the front.
Correct. The district and the board are recognizing our amazing professionals who are going to be leaving the district and retiring. We thank you for your service and commitment. And they will be retiring at the conclusion of the 2022-2023 school year. So first is Brenda Bowers with 18 years of service. And Brenda couldn't join us tonight. And Jackie Carr Peeler with 22 years of service. Next is Stacy Dobernecker with 21 years of service. Julie Edmondson with 14 years of service. Steve Flynn, 16 years of service. Patty Harrison Allen with 23 years of service. Irina Kursanova Henriksen with 13 years of service, and she's not able to join us tonight. Alan Junk, 30 years of service. Linda May, 19 years of service. Scott Ricks, 27 years of service. Pam Sassman, 12 years of service. And Cheryl Stalder, 18 years of service. Thank you for being here, and thank you to all of our retirees. We appreciate your years of service so much.
All right. Our next agenda item this evening is our discussion items, beginning with board committee updates. And we'll start this evening with the facilities committee.
We met, the minutes are there on the 10th of May, and I think the minutes really covered really everything that in a pretty solid way. We had an update just from the pool moving forward. They Hunziker councilman worked with the state and worked through some of the questions and that they had. It was really a paperwork issue in terms of filing the paperwork and getting things in line so that we could be up and operating. And so everything's been taken care of there, and they've got the operating procedures that they need for the aquatic center. As you're all aware, the demolition is done. They continue to move through on that, and really exciting. I think there was a video posted. I lost track of time, but I think they posted a few pictures recently in the past few days or the past week. So I think everything else in the minutes was pretty thorough, but Brett and Alan, please fill in if you can think of anything. Any questions?
All right, thank you. Policy committee.
We met on May 10th, and I'll save the details of some of the changes, revisions that we made are in the minutes, but we can save the discussion for a couple more items down.
And teaching and learning.
We had a discussion of the math curriculum review, and I have a few interesting things to share. One is there was a national survey of U.S. adults that would show that how math is taught is in most need of updating and improvement for students, according to the respondents. And they've switched. There's been a shift in the National Common Core from essential standards to major clusters to represent grade level proficiencies. And they're starting to look at having a balance between skills and fluency of, can a student do this particular thing, to conceptual understanding, do they know why they're doing it, and application, how is it used. It's important for them to balance all three of those. I found that to be really interesting. And there's also a push to make sure that local and national needs and trends and how math instruction is structured is also seen in Ames Community School District. The last thing that we discussed was some of the activities that teachers and administrators are going to be involved in doing this summer for Ruler Danielson Core team, math curriculum, building leadership team, summer literacy, and summer math learning. Oh, it's a good meeting. Anything to add or any questions?
All right, thank you. Our next discussion item is the 2022-23 PEPL budget. And I see Jerry is not here. Do we have someone that was going to?
He's-
Good to see you in the corner there, Jerry Peters.
Thank you for your time. Prepared the kind of common PEPAL budget report here. We had a work session the last time, which gave some background and so on. So basically, the first three sheets are the single one-year reports, the results from last year, the final budget for this year, and then the initial budget for next year. The more exciting one or kind of informative one then is the following 5-year budget, which kind of shows how the projection works as we move into the future. And again, the significant thing with the PEPAL funding that we have is that we can maintain the fund balance. And so this is kind of a good measure of how we do that. The fund balance is, we're building that up here. And so that's going to help us to be able to prepare for larger projects down the road and in the future. As that fund balance starts to get down, we want to try and maintain a certain amount in there. But as it does get low, if it does get low, then we'll want to watch our cash flow. And so we'll track that with the tax receipts. The next several sheets indicate kind of the general categories and how the funding is distributed. I've got pie charts that show each of the years with the category breakdowns. The next sheet, then the last sheet's project status report. So this is a list of the active projects that we have going, and then the ones that we have planned. And then the latter portion of that indicates the process for new requests. And we're working with Dr. Lawson to be able to prioritize them and schedule them and get them sequenced into future budgets and projects. So that was a pretty Reader's Digest version, but if there's any particular questions, I'd be happy to elaborate.
And you maybe, I can't remember if we've had this at the board, we've had it at the facilities committee, but the numbers in terms of the prioritization help the board understand what those, do you have that in front of you or not? I'm kind of setting you up, Jerry, because I didn't tell you I was going to ask that question. So
I don't have that.
But in general, in terms of can you help the board understand and the community how you prioritize these projects?
Sure.
How about that?
In the board policy under the PEPAL fund, there's certain categories that prioritize the issues that we want to be able to address. And then I've been working with Dr. Lawson, and we've got established then a second level of priorities. We've got a kind of a 2-level, an A, B, and C, which is urgent, medium, and then less priority. We have them staggered then in with numbers. So with that prioritization, though, we've one of the challenges, that's what we'll be able to use to be able to push things to the top in urgent. But a couple of the challenges or the complexity of that has to do with how we sequence those activities. So in the big budget, I have projects sequenced throughout the life expectancy of a building. For instance, on roofing, that's going to be a high priority, but it's not scheduled to occur until a certain period of time. So we'll have high priorities that might be in subsequent years, but yet it's not time for that replacement schedule. So it's kind of a balancing a lot of those things together to be able to establish a year-by-year priority schedule.
So I see that our capital improvement budget really is the line item that fluctuates a lot over time, right? And I'm looking down at the tables at the bottom, which I think tells us what exactly it is that's fluctuating from year to year. And I mean, so is that the way I should read this? The table on page 8?
Which year?
So you have the PEPAL project status page. What I see is page 8 of the document. There's a long table full of projects. There's PEPAL project status. then another table on page 8 that says projects and capital budget. Sorry. Okay, is that the right? Yeah. So these yes, exactly what I'm looking for at here on the screen. So these, okay, these projects here are basically giving us the content of what is fluctuating in that capital improvement budget. Is that what's happening? Is that how I should read it?
Yeah, so the categorization, as far as capital improvements versus routine
Mhm.
maintenance, I've worked to be able to, identify a category for that.
Yeah,
And so the capital improvement projects are kind of a sorting mechanism.
right.
So I try to be able to kind of bring forth or assign a capital improvement project if it's a significant amount, to be able to bring that up, to be able to display and to bring it up into notice.
Okay.
The routine maintenance type of things, as far as grounds care and things like that, for smaller things, it's such a big category, but smaller, different kind of incidental type of tasks that aren't really kind of noteworthy. So I want to bring the noteworthy items or projects forward.
Okay, great.
So
So
that's
you're
how I
finding
use
anything
that
that's,
sorting mechanism.
But
okay.
if you look at like line 7 though of expenditures, right?
Line
Same here.
expenditures.
Up here,
Oh, wait.
you'll see that fluctuates massively too, because of some of the things down below. So that
Right.
table down below doesn't only show up in SIP projects,
Okay,
which is a bit confusing. But
okay.
Do you have a goal of what you carry over as a fund balance from year to year?
No, not really a goal. We want to try to maintain a minimum account balance or fund balance and of about $1 million.
The reason I ask is because I see in, here's that. 26, 27, the ending fund balance is 110,000. Am I looking at that right?
Yes.
Is there a reason that it's going so low that year?
It's all in the math, as long as the math is correct. And I think in that year, the significant projects that we have planned are the playground projects.
Or is it the Edwards and Meeker?
Yeah.
Potential
26. Yeah.
There's
So-
some roofing, but I guess my question is, if you try to keep at least $1 million, does that make us vulnerable to get it that low?
It does for emergencies or
Mhm.
for unforeseen types of
Right.
things. So with that, as we're that far out, we'll look to be able to kind of, as we get closer,
It'll
we'll
be
be able to
adjusted.
plan close. Yeah. So at least this
Okay.
gives us an idea of what to prepare for.
Okay,
And it's better to know that 3 years in advance or 4 years in advance than it is like,
yeah,
be able to let it surprise us for next year.
right, all right, thank you.
I guess one question I have is based on the work session we had the other night. I thought the playground surfaces would actually end up being higher and not delayed until 24, 25, 25, 26, given the importance those have on delivery for some of our students. Is this what we had talked about back then, or has that changed? Or are you continuing to work with Dr. Lawson on prioritizing that, or?
So there's the playground is we talked about providing some inclusive features. And the goal would be to try and put some of those inclusive features in sooner rather than waiting for the big playground project.
Mhm.
So what my intent is to be able to get with the elementary principals in order to be able to understand what those inclusive features are that we want to try and get in. And we'll push those in forward and
Okay.
get those in sooner.
And that's just
so we
not
can
on
address
there. And maybe that stuff's not on there right now because it's lower cost or something.
Right. And the timing.
Okay, I just want to make sure we don't lose that because I'd like to see that like right up towards the top of the priority down below.
Yeah. So the goal is to be able to develop the big picture. And then every step we take, we want to move forward and not have to back out.
Mhm.
And so that the goal is then to be able to work with them to understand what their inclusive needs are, to be able to bring the district up, all the elementaries up at an even level. There'll be uniqueness at each building, but we'll provide that program at each level. And then we'll be able to do the big pavement and surfacing project in a couple years.
And the only other comment I'd have is kind of like Director Franzen said, I know what your priority letters and numbers mean, but I think when we have documents like this, the public sees, just trying to always have that as a legend somewhere so that it makes sense to them as well.
Yes, Dr. Lawson reminded me and I missed it. I apologize for that.
I just want to make a clarification or comment for the public to make sure that folks understand that when we talk about the PEPAL budget, that is separate from our general budget, and that none of the funds in our PEPAL budget can be used for staff salaries or things like that. So it can be challenging, I think, when folks are hearing some of these big numbers and knowing that we're facing budget cuts, that these are two completely separate things that we have to keep separate by law.
So feel free to lobby your legislators to change that because we would love to, and I know some of them would love to as well.
Sure. Yeah, the Iowa Code has specific rules about what can and cannot be used, appropriate and inappropriate uses of PEPAL funds. So everything we do is just in full compliance with that.
Yep. Thanks, Jerry. Any other questions from the board? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item is ESSER employee retention pay, and we'll turn it over to Chris.
Sorry. If you'll recall, in April, when we settled with the Teachers Association, we had provided a recommendation, which the board approved, for a one-time $1,500 retention payment for the teachers. We are bringing forward tonight a recommendation for all the other groups, all the other support staff groups, of $1,000 one-time retention bonus that would act in the same way as the one for the teachers. Don't know what else to say.
Comments for Chris?
I'm sorry.
No, I just asking if anyone had any questions.
Actually, so we have about $2.5 million left as of June 30th. And we'll need to be spending it. So where are we at in terms of our current plans to spend it down?
Well, we've got about $800,000 of staff on it.
Right.
And we, I'm sorry, I don't have that document pulled up. Hold on a second. So between the recommendations of all of the retention bonuses is $870,000. We have about $800,000 of staff on. So that is about 1.7 million of the 2.5. Now the 2.5 does include the learning loss portion too. So that's a different pot of money. The regular ESSER that we can use on these kind of things, I estimate we'll have about 2 million left at the end of the year. So of that, almost 1.8 million would already be obligated. We have things come up throughout the year. We are probably going to have to put some elementary sections on ESSER this year, looking at the numbers. So I think, and the learning loss has to be used for those specific purposes. So I think we're going to be right about there to spend it all. One way or the other, we will spend all the ESSER funds by June of 24.
Awesome.
Because we can use it for anything. So I will move expenditures to it and then free up spending authority if we don't hire new staff or have new programs. So one way or the other, we will spend it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, and it doesn't look like we have anyone signed up to speak under discussion items. So I will move on to our policies for discussion.
So most of these are in the minutes from the last policy committee meeting, except for 213, no, that's not it. 401.9, that one we had to check with legal to make sure it was up to standards, but there are two that I want to highlight to discuss. There may be others that you want to highlight. That's cool too. One of those is, sorry, I have too many tabs open. 210.8, the board meeting agenda. The recommendation from IASB was to remove a paragraph that talked about kind of how the board gets things on the board members get things on the agenda and how things can be brought back. We were unclear as I looked back at this, what our final decision was. I had thought that we were going to keep the part that said the board president and or vice president participate in creating and reviewing the agenda with the superintendent prior to each meeting. The request of 2 board members will result in item being placed on the agenda within 2 regularly scheduled meetings. Keeping that part and getting rid of the rest. I'm not sure, but the draft has it all removed. So I want to see what y'all think if we want to keep that section. My thought was to have kind of the procedure that we use to get things on an agenda in policy made sense. The rest of that was kind of extra stuff that we didn't really need according to IASB.
So I'm sorry, can you repeat? Because it took me a while to realize that I had to open up the old policy and not the new policy.
So if you just open the minutes from the policy committee meeting, that's probably the easiest place to look. So that 210.8 board meeting agenda, the recommended revisions is basically to get rid of that big block quote there. That was what IASB recommended. I think that we discussed in our committee meeting keeping just the first 2 sentences about how we get things on the agenda.
And I couldn't 100% remember either. So we just thought we'd bring it to the board table since it was on the agenda.
I looked at it closer to in reviewing for tonight, and then I was like, oh, wait a second. And that was right before. So yeah.
I think it would be good practice for us to have that in, because it states the role of the board in creating the agenda. So I don't recall, but I'm sure we wanted it kept in there.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's good to have documented what the procedure is for putting together the agenda and for getting something on the agenda. I noticed that this policy here, the old statement that we had, actually doesn't say anything about a 3rd board member being in agenda setting. So I think the tradition works. I like the current arrangement, but we
don't want to have it in policy because it's not always possible for that 3rd person to be there. So that's why it's the president and or vice president. So at least one needs to be there. And then if the 3rd person is there, great, but it's not like in policy that there has to be a 3rd person there.
Okay. I would suggest though that may be something that we include in the board handbook as our some of our general operating procedures. So we have it documented for future boards that we have found this to be a helpful procedure to do.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
would it make sense then to change that to 2 board members will be engaged, 2 board members, at least 2 board members? No,
I don't think so because it has to be the president or vice president.
Yeah. Okay.
So the part that we would remove, if an item was an action item on previous board agenda, we'd remove that.
Yeah, that's just, I think my understanding is that's Robert's rules, right? And so we don't really need that in board policy.
Okay, so we still have protection from that.
Yes.
And what that's supposed to cover?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that was why IASB recommended removing it because it's not necessary.
I should know this, but do our policies actually explicitly say we follow Robert's rules?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. So I think that one we'll bring back will include those 2 sentences then. Okay. And then the other one that is a change in practice is in 213 public participation at board meetings. As you know, as we just did, we usually ask, we have a sign up both for discussion items and the public forum. We were proposing to remove the I guess public comment after the discussion items and keep everything in the public comment. I think I don't want to speak for everyone, but the feeling was maybe this was simpler to have it kind of streamlined and all in one place. I will say that we've heard at least one concern that It might limit to some degree people's ability to speak if they wanted to speak on a discussion item, for example, and in public comment. So there is that trade-off.
Just to comment on that, it is that they can speak for 3 minutes once per item. So they could still speak on 2 different items for 3 minutes.
In public comment?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's part of the, yep. Isn't that accurate, Chris? For 3 minutes, once per item. I say it like a million times, so.
Yeah.
Oh, currently?
Yes, yeah.
Yes, currently. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah, so they could still speak on 2 different topics, just for 3 minutes each.
Okay.
They'd have to sign up twice, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, does the sign up sheet ask you what agenda item you would like to speak about?
The public forum one does not, but if we are getting rid of the discussion one, we certainly could add that to the public forum one then.
Okay.
So because the
If you would
discussion,
like to know, if you would like to speak at more than one item, please note the items that you would like to speak about or
or
something.
we can just ask for the
Yeah.
topic, so
Yeah.
just to have record of it anyway, so.
Yeah, but we would want to denote specifically that they can comment on more than one. They can sign up more than once to speak on multiple items.
So what we're saying is if we had 5 discussion items and it came to public forum, someone could sign up for 5 different items that they would want to speak on during the public.
That's
forum.
how I read our current policy.
Yeah.
Current.
I mean,
Speaker participation is limited to 3 minutes once per item. That's in the public forum.
Right, but I thought it was recommended that from IASB that we remove that part.
I don't think this.
No, I
was
think
an
it was,
IASB recommendation, right, Kelly?
no, this had come out of another.
It was IASB? I can't remember.
So there's 2 different things. There's the public forum, which they can,
Mhm.
they can speak for 3 minutes on anything, whether it's on the agenda or not. And then our current policy allows discussion on or allows comment after each discussion item.
Correct.
I think the proposal was to eliminate on each discussion item and just limit it to the public forum. That's what came through the policy
So
committee.
I think the
draft
question,
policy,
What's that?
the draft policy, the text of the draft policy that's here says during public forum, people may speak to the board about topics not on the current agenda. Participants are limited to speaking once during the public forum.
Oh,
So that's in the new draft policy.
okay.
So that would be, I'm not entirely sure if that's a change in policy. I think so,
That,
but that would definitely,
that's always been the case, that
Address
they can speak
Alicia.
once during public forum, but then they could speak on each discussion item after the agenda, after the discussion item.
okay, I think that's where we were confused because the way Sabrina was saying, she
Yeah.
interpreted it was that you could speak multiple times during public forum if they were on a different topic. Right? Is that what she was?
Yes, that
Okay.
was, but maybe I was misreading the.
I would say, I mean, we rarely have anybody speak after an agenda item. And when this has been come up before, and I think a work session, it seemed like, well, if we don't have people using this forum or this means of communication, then do we need it? But if there are people out there who are regularly attending board meetings and trying to participate in the business of the district and they find it useful, I don't see a reason not to have it. I don't see a reason to get rid of something that certain people at certain members of the public do find useful.
I tend to agree with that, or those who might find it useful, even though currently we're not experiencing that a lot. So to keep that open seems reasonable.
I don't have a strong opinion either way, honestly. I thought, this seems easier, but if it's not easier and it's not better for folks, then that's
Yeah. and
fine
I
with me
was-
too.
I was thinking they still had the ability to comment on multiple items.
Yeah.
So,
They can, during the public forum, they can comment on multiple items,
only
but
for
only
3
wait for
minutes.
3 minutes. Yes.
I think given that I would rather just leave it the way we've had it.
Why don't we-
I would actually recommend though, that instead of opening up after each discussion item, we open it at the end for all discussion items. It used to be after each one. It can get very clunky, and there have been times when there have been lots of discussion. During COVID,
Mhm.
we had hours
mhm.
hours of comments during the discussion item. And we had talked at that time about eliminating it because it's not a requirement for the board to allow that. So right now, it doesn't seem to make much difference to our meetings, but it can make a lot of difference to the meeting.
So this is where it gets tricky as board members, because these are really business meetings in public.
Right.
So this is not intended to be an opportunity for us because we can't engage with the public during this time. I appreciate all the comments. In the time that I've been on the board, this has gone back and forth a couple of times, and all comments are valid. I think that the trickiness for, depending on if you're sitting in these seats, if you're sitting in those seats, we do want to hear comments, but we also have a whole lot of business that we have to get through. And so right now it's manageable because we haven't had a lot of comments. During COVID time, it was tricky. We really hope we don't have a global pandemic again in the next near future, right? But there may be other topics that come up of importance. And so I think that the balance, the trickiness of this policy is balancing the opportunity for us to hear from the public, but also the opportunity for us to say, we have to get our business done because there are only so many hours for us as volunteers to be here to do the work that we need to do for the district. So I'm not saying leaning one other way. Perhaps the board needs to, maybe we take this back to policy, given the comments that have been made tonight. And if you have additional comments, board members, send them just to Kelly, because Kelly's our facilitator and she can bring those to our meeting, and maybe we can weigh some pros and cons, and maybe his staff can have some discussions.
Yeah, that was going to be my recommendation.
That
I'll
sounds
get
good
back
to
to
me.
policy.
Yeah.
Those are the two I was going to highlight, but if there's any other comments, questions on the other, any other policies folks want to discuss?
All right. And we do not have anyone signed up. Oh, wait, we already said that because this is no longer the item. So then I will go ahead and open our public forum, and I will read our statement on public comments. Residents of the district, students attending the district, parents or guardians of students attending the district, and district staff members may address the board about any topic relevant to the district, whether on the current agenda or not. Those who wish to speak must sign up at the beginning of the meeting. Speaker participation is limited to 3 minutes once per item. The views and opinions of citizens addressing the board do not necessarily reflect those of the board, district administration, or staff. Speakers are to remember that Iowa law prohibits the board from discussing specific employees, students, or their performance. Student speakers will state their name and school. Others will state their name and address. And first this evening, we have Alejandro Plastina. You can come right up to the microphone here. You might have to switch it on. I'm not sure if it's on.
Yeah, it seems to be on.
Perfect.
All right. Good evening. I'm Alejandro Plastina from 3133 Bayberry Road. My family and I are here today to raise concerns about the recent budgetary decisions affecting the Ames Community School District. Some of their consequences are alarming and their justifications very unclear. We choose to voice our concerns in front of the school board because, and I will quote from policy number 200.3, the board is entrusted with public funds and is responsible for overseeing the improvement of student outcomes, including student achievement and skill proficiency. Furthermore, as we recited at the beginning of the meeting, the purpose of the school district is to commit to equity and access that empowers every individual to reach their full potential and full personal and educational potential. Among the 5 top priorities for the district, here on the first page, education equity and improvement is listed first, transparent financial planning second, and community to support positive and proactive community relationships fourth. In the budgeting process for next year, where and when were we, the community, invited to review budget drafts and provide feedback? We expect the school board to choose what is best for our students, not to take the path of least resistance or to accept guidance without proper inquiry. Apparently, budget cuts will total $900,000 or about 90% of the budget reduction will come from middle and high school programs. What is the reasoning supporting the extra burden on secondary education when the demographer projects a relatively larger decline in enrollment in pre-K and elementary school than in secondary education? What, if any, cuts are being borne by administration? What are the school district priorities when our kids' enhanced learning program and foreign language access are reduced while the district office is not taking any cuts? Has anybody analyzed whether our students still need today 5 IT personnel at the district level when education is no longer online? Does it make sense to support salary increases for administrators at the expense of programming and instruction for our kids? Has anyone evaluated the unintended consequences of not replacing retiring teachers? I am not aware of any invitation to ask the community to discuss what areas can be or cannot be cut. Nor have I seen any public document explaining the list of priorities used to identify areas where budget cuts could have the lowest impact on student outcomes. Unfortunately, I must conclude that tough budgeting decisions were made with complete disregard for community input and are therefore tainted with questionable transparency. Such disregard for community input conflicts with the spirit and goal of a strategic planning exercise in which the district is investing significant time, efforts, and financial resources. Additionally, since the current communication strategy with respect to budgeting is fundamentally flawed, we strongly request the publication of a document explaining the budgeting process with a clear indication of the stages where the community can engage, review it, request clarifications, and provide feedback. Best decision-making for our students should always actively involve us, the community. I strongly encourage all families here to communicate with school administrators and board members via email requesting transparency in the budgeting process along with an impact assessment of the proposed cuts. Thank you for this opportunity to address the board.
Thank you. Natalia Rogowska.
Good evening. My name is Natalia Rogowska and I live at 5224 Acre Drive. I would like to start by asking you a rhetorical question. What brings families and students to Ames Community School District? Is there a colorful, amazing magazine our district produces quarterly, monthly podcasts, maybe brand new district office we are currently in, or the state-of-the-art athletic facilities, Ames High? What attracts families to Ames, many families like we have here today, is the district focus on teaching and learning, its commitment to academic excellence, helping students succeed by providing numerous opportunities to grow academically, are excellent teachers, an extensive selection of programs from English learners to foreign language learners, extended learning, honors, and EP classes. At least this is how it was in the past. In the last several years, a decline in enrollment numbers clearly suggest that Ames Community School District is no longer a desirable destination. Since 2020, we lost a total of 150 students and currently are 500 students below previously projected peak of 5,400. October 2022 count showed 91 fewer resident students compared to previous year. Half of which choose to attend neighboring schools. Since October, we have an additional net loss of 33 students. For each student enrolling in, we lose 3 students enrolling out. In addition, Ames newcoming families are specifically seeking housing outside of Ames Community School District borders, leading to a projected stagnation in district enrollment despite growing Ames population. At the same time, Gilbert gained 177 students. 93 students from our districts are openly enrolling in Gilbert this year alone. Numerous local policies enacted during pandemic that discouraged learning added to enrollment decline. Thus, it is critical time to stop the cycle of declining enrollment followed by budget cuts. Given this trend, please help us understand how implementing significant cuts to programming, mostly on secondary school level, will help reverse declining trend, especially since both middle and high schools are already severely understaffed and maxed out. This shortage led to a decline in academic standards and landed Ames High School in the bottom 5% of Iowa schools, a sharp change from high performance designation in 2018. Surely a solution could be found, and to our knowledge, it was proposed that would distribute budget deficiencies proportionally across the entire district, including district office and athletic programs. So the projected 900,000 cut does not severely affect secondary school programming only. If the proposed cuts are implemented, it would significantly degrade the academic programs, making it even less attractive for open enrollment and more likely for resident student families to leave our district, thus worsening financial situation and forcing qualified teachers to resign, as it is already happening now. Thank you.
Zhang Yishao.
Hello, my name is Zheng Yishao, 2330 Northridge Parkway. I'm a mom of two middle schoolers. I want to make 2 points. First of all, last year I transferred one of my kids from Gilbert Middle School to Ames Middle School because of the more diversified academic program. However, this year, considering the potential cut in the ELP program, together with the potential leaving of the science Olympiad teachers, start to make me wonder what would be the right choice for my kids. And I want the board to get alert that I'm not only one of the family. I know quite a non-trivial number of families are sharing the same concern. Second point I want to make is I also teach at ISU. I know at ISU there are a lot of resources, infrastructure, and highly educated personnel who are out there who are really willing to provide help if there is a need to help the school to advance the program. So this roll back to the first point I just made. I want the board to get alert that Ames School District used to attract a lot of families to enroll their kids because of the strong academic program and the diverse opportunity. I hope this kind of strength can be sustained. And there are many of us who are attending the meeting here today, and we really want to provide any help if there is a special need. Please let our parents to know that. Thank you.
Thank you. Pavan Adori.
Hi, I'm Pavan Aduri. I live in 2616 Kingston Drive. I have a kid who goes to Ames High School. So today I would like to bring in 2 issues related to retention and recruitment of teachers. That's partly related to the points that raised by the earlier speakers. It seems to me that the lack of transparency, maybe it's perceived or maybe it's real, combined with the reduced support to the ELP and AP programs, is making some of our teachers move away from the school district. For example, last week I spoke to 2 teachers who either resigned or planning to resign because of these reasons. And I think we already lost 4 excellent teachers from Ames Middle School and High School. They moved to different school districts. And I have tried, if this continues, it might be difficult to recruit talented teachers, and which in turn will affect our student enrollments. And a second related point is I work at Iowa State University, and I served on several search committees. So where we hire faculty and staff, and most of the times the candidates that we have school-age children. So invariably during the interview process, the topic comes is the school district. And till now, we used to say that okay, Ames has an excellent school district and they provide a lot of advanced learning opportunities to the students, including AP opportunities for several AP courses and ELP programs. But with the proposed reduced support to these programs, we no longer will be able to sell it to these new people who are willing to considering moving to Ames and they have the school-age children. So what does it mean? Either they choose not to come to Ames, or even if they come, maybe they will choose to reside in a different school district. In either way, that will reduce the enrollment. And I think that is a lose-lose situation for both Iowa State. They're not able to attract the top talent, and then the school district also, because when we do not have any new people moving to the school district, that will further reduce the enrollments. And having a top-notch research, one institution in our backyard and school district not able to cash on it and is not desirable. Thank you.
Thank you. Surya Malapragada.
Hello, I'm Surya Malapragada from 3217 Aspen Circle. I have 2 kids in the school district. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for your service on the board. I've heard that there are 2 or 3 key science and math AP courses, such as calculus, biology, chemistry, that may not be offered because of multiple staff members leaving and not being replaced due to the budget cuts. And it's not just offering the courses. We need to have the teachers qualified to teach these courses because the College Board recommends teachers to have special training to be able to teach these courses. Again, I've heard these from multiple sources, but I have no way to confirm this because of the lack of transparency alluded to earlier. So it's unclear if this is true, but I wanted to bring this issue up in case these AP courses are being considered for cuts. We've all we all want every person to achieve their full potential, of course. And some people think that this issue related to AP courses is a niche one that affects only a small number of students. But data provided by the school district or the strategic planning work group that I'm part of indicates that in 2022 alone, there were a total of 471 unique students who enrolled in AP courses. And so these numbers are actually similar to those in the recent past as well. So this is an issue this is an issue that affects a large number of students. And based on the fact finding that we did as part of the work group, the number of AP offerings at Ames High is already low compared to our peers. For instance, the Gilbert Community School District with the lower student population offers all of the courses that I mentioned above. And Ankeny and Des Moines have a lot more of these AP offerings for their students. If these AP courses are not offered at Ames High, it'll just lower our appeal as a district in the future and further decrease our enrollment, which will further exacerbate our budget problem. Again, as pointed out earlier, many parents choose the Ames Community School District because of academic excellence and track record with a wide diversity of educational offerings. But if this is called into question, then there'll be more budget cuts in the future. I also just want to point out that despite all these arguments, if the district plans to take away these AP courses or not have qualified personnel to teach them, they should at least allow the AP equivalent courses to be taken at ISU as opposed to DMAC. These AP courses are recognized nationally. ISU has equivalents that it recognizes with DMAC, but that's not a nationally accepted situation. And so our first choice, of course, is to give our students a chance to take these AP courses at Ames High. But if that's not, if that opportunity is going to be taken away from them, then the board should at least consider removing the relevant courses from the DMAC list, allowing the students to take these courses at ISU. Thank you.
Steph Harris.
Good evening. My name is Steph Shares and I live at 905 Vermont Circle in Ames. I currently work as an 8th grade health teacher and a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade ELP extended learning program teacher at Ames Middle School. And I see some of my students here tonight. I'm so excited for them to be here and experience this. Tonight I'm also a parent of 3 kids in the district, by the way. Tonight, I will speak to you about the 0.5 FTE cut to the AMS ELP department and our team's plan to mitigate the damage of this reduction. To understand my proposal, you should understand how our department is staffed and how that facilitates student need in our building. We serve students in all 3 grade levels, 6, 7, and 8, during an intervention period called What I Need or WIN. During WIN time, all students needing an intervention, whether it be language learning, catching up in math, practicing a band instrument, or my students who need above level academic challenges, they are all getting their interventions at the same time. For this reason, having 3 staff on our ELP team is crucial. We can serve 3 groups of students at each grade level, usually about 75 students per quarter. We rotated the quarter so that students who were not served the previous quarter are served in subsequent quarters. Currently, we are staffed at 1.8 FTE. I have 0.7. My colleagues are staffed at 0.6 and 0.5. The proposal was initially to cut my 0.5 colleague completely, leaving 2 teachers at 0.7 and 0.6. This is suboptimal and will greatly decrease our services to students. Consider this. Over the course of 4 quarters, 3 staff members can offer 12 sessions of ELP WIN. With 2 staff members over the course of 4 quarters, 2 staff members can only offer 8 sessions of ELP WIN. In a district where a big percentage of our students score in the 90th percentile or above on ISASP, we need these above-level services. These services are key for giving students an education appropriate to their needs. To give you an idea of the numbers I'm dealing with, we serve about 100 to 115 students per grade level per year, which is about 1/3 of the student body. This is not elitism. This is 1/3 of the student body. I understand the budget cuts are not your doing. That's why I came up with a solution for you. If we still cut 0.5 FTE from our department, we can still keep 3 staff and we can still keep the integrity of our service model for AMS students like this. Our department has agreed we would all be willing to take pay cuts in FTE to maintain the integrity of this program. Personally, I am willing to drop from 0.7 to 0.4. My other 2 colleagues who have approved this message are willing to go down to 0.5 and 0.4. This still adds up to the collective cut of 0.5, which was the target. This solution has been proposed at the building level, but not approved. I would like the board and the superintendent to consider this plan fully. Thank you for your time.
Ying Zhao.
Good evening. My name is Ying Zhao, and my address is 3026 Evergreen Circle. I'm a parent of 2 K-12 students enrolled in Ames district. In the past month or so, I keep hearing concerning news from neighbors, friends, coworkers, and even my own kids. My kids came home and told me that a teacher was leaving. So they didn't even know what's going to happen to that class next year because the school is not going to hire new students and new teachers. So it sounds like the budget situation could affect a dozen teaching positions. No classes or programs are safe. That's what I heard. I was shocked. I don't know. I don't want to spread rumors. I wish some of the information I received was not true, but I have not received any information from the school district. There was a petition set up to request the Ames Community School District hire a new French teacher at Ames High School a couple of weeks ago. I believe a parent has already presented the petition results to the board during the last board meeting. There are 209 signatures collected on the petition to this date. Please keep in mind that the petition was only for 1 program and 1 teaching position. You can imagine how many concerned parents and students are out there for losing a dozen teaching positions. I have yet to receive any communication through any formal channels, like the principals or the school district or the superintendent or whoever's in charge of this situation. Some college requires students to finish 4 years of foreign language classes. So how is it possible for our students to finish that with no teachers to teach French classes? And should our kids pick which foreign language to learn, not based on interest, but based on student teacher availability? Are we even going to take away that option from our children? So how do we prepare for their education if we don't even know what classes are going to be offered by the school? So as you can see, I have many questions. I know many parents share the same concerns. With respect, I'm asking the board to please get the parents and the community involved and share information with us, especially the information that affects the basic education of our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Then you're on Zoom.
Hi, my name is Zheng Yuanzhu. I'm living in 2708 Cambridge Drive. I have 2 kids in the school district. Thanks for listening to my to the comments here. So as one of the last one to speak, I think many of my points already been made by the previous speakers. I will just briefly summarize. First of all, the budget problem is caused by the enrollment decrease. And if you look at the enrollment data, the high school has if we compare the 2022 data with the 2019 data, which is pre-pandemic, the high school actually has an increase of 63 students. The middle school is basically flat, 1,040 versus 1,041. And the elementary school decreased 132 students. The preschool decreased 79 students. So if you look at in terms of the number of students reduced, it's not at all at the middle school and high school level, at least based on those 2 years. I think that if you have a budget cut, that probably should be more proportional. And another point is that we need to look at the root cause of the decrease of enrollment. Some of them is due to the demographic. There are less baby born in the county in 2020 versus 2016. But you should also look at the fact that there's a lot that's driven by the reputation of the school district. It's not just the demographic. If you have a good school district, if the school is good, academic program is strong, people are willing to move here, right? So we have a lot of faculty, new faculty hired in the university. I used to be very proud to present this school district as an attractive feature for the Ames as a city to live in. And now I'm not really that proud to ask them to move here and start a family here. If you also look at the in-migration versus out-migration, the open enrollment into the district versus out of district, some Natalia already quoted the statistics, it's really also alarming. A lot more students open enroll into our district previously than currently. And now more of the students in the district living in Ames want to open enroll into other districts. That's a direct reflection of the fact that our program quality is decreasing. And if we are implementing the cut that we're having now, that's going to be significantly degrade the ELP program, the AP program. That's going to be really detrimental to the district, and I think it will lead to further decrease of the enrollment and a further problem in the budget. So I also wanted to say at last that we have more than 20 families presenting here, but they represent more than 100 families that are very concerned about this issue. Please take our comments seriously. Thank you.
Okay, and that was our last speaker for the evening. So I will go ahead and close our public forum, and we will move on to our consent items, and I'll entertain a motion.
I move the board approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Moved by Franzen, seconded by Beerbaum. Superintendent Lawson gives to the district.
Yes, the superintendent's office received the completed form for and recommends acceptance of the following gifts from the North Crest community: $25,324 cash for the benefit of the Hope Pantry, which we recognized at the start of our meeting. Lelia and Thomas Scott, $1,000 cash, 7 violins at a $3,000 total value for the benefit of the Ames High Orchestra. Iowa State University Civil Construction and Environmental Engineering Department donated 2 ADA wooden picnic tables at a $2,500 value for the benefit of Northwood Preschool. And Tom Dooley, in memoriam of Julie Dooley, donated a variety of craft supplies valued at $200 for the benefit of the Fellows Elementary Art Classroom.
Thank you. It was moved by Franzen, seconded by Beerbaum to accept the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Moving on to our action items, we'll begin with our 2022-2023 proposed budget amendment.
I move the board adopt the budget amendment as presented.
Second.
Moved by Winfrey, seconded by Franzen. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. ESSER employee retention pay.
Due to systemic staff shortages in the state, staff vacancies in our district, and to reinforce our desire to retain our employees, I move the board approve the retention pay plan for support staff employees plan as presented.
Second.
Moved by Lynn, seconded by Winfrey. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. 2023-24 school fees.
I move the board approve the 2023-24 school fees as presented.
Second.
Moved by Franzen, seconded by Becker. Discussion?
Yeah, so I wanted to. Great. He knows. Yeah, so first of all, thank you, Jeff, for putting an asterisk by the fees that were waivable. Just like the discussion with Jerry Peters. Can we like put a key so other people reading this would know what the asterisk is? That's a little thing.
In the body of the
Yeah.
content, I believe in the second or third paragraph, it reads the items below marked with an asterisk are the ones that are required. But if maybe we could bold that or call that out in the movie, if that's buried, if you will. But that's where I put that information.
Okay. Yeah, you did. Sorry. So I have questions about policies in the board update that we got from Dr. Lawson. Last Friday, Dr. Lawson linked to all of the various policies for what we can waive and what we can't waive. And I think I've heard we've had 2 years worth of discussion now, or at least in my experience, in my time, we've had 2 years of discussion about this item. And I realized that after our discussion 2 weeks ago, I was still confused about what was allowed, what was not allowed, what was required, what was not required. So thanks to everybody for finding those policies. From what I can tell from the board, from the update that we got from Dr. Lawson, my understanding is that the board is, and I went to the policy as well, the law. It looks like we are required to waive fees in certain categories. Basically, the required fees we're required to have either waived or 50% to waive the fees for students on free lunch and to and we've chosen a 50% level to reduce them at the for students who are on reduced price lunch. But it seems that legally we are allowed to waive fees in other categories or voluntary fees, from what I can understand. So I started to wonder what would it cost, because there have been some people here at the board table who said, well, wouldn't it be nice if we could waive some of the voluntary fees too, to get more students involved and help build a sense of community. So I asked Chris earlier today for numbers of free and reduced price lunch students. I started playing around with numbers. So my understanding from my email exchange with Chris was that there are certain categories where we could not take the fees for students on free and reduced lunch out of the general fund. That's exciting strobe lights.
I know, it's just messing my eyes here.
I know. I feel like dancing. So my understanding is that there are certain categories of fees that we could not take out of general fund. There are other categories of voluntary fees that we could take out of general fund. So I started playing around with numbers. It looks like waiving some of these fees would have a large cost impact or relatively large, if like they went to everybody in the district, or if they went, so for instance, estimating that there are approximately 800 students on free lunch who, if every single one of those 800 students had their fees for an instrument waived, their $75 for an instrument waived, that would come up to $65,000. Now, presumably all 800 of those students are eligible students. That is students that I estimated from 6th to 12th grade, since those are the grades that get instruments. Presumably not all 800 of those students would want an instrument, but if they did all want instruments, it would be $65,000. So that's a large ticket item. But I have no idea what percentage of students, say in the free lunch category, actually want instruments. But it's something to think about. So then you get into, say, estimating that 5% of students participate in the Matter Goal, which is probably high at Ames High School, but I don't know. But I just ballparking that 5% of students are in the Matter Goal. To waive fees for the free and reduced price lunch students, or waive or partially waive fees for free and reduced price lunch students, assuming that 5% of them wanted to participate in the Matter Goal, that would be $800. So I started going through and looking at the different budget items and what would it cost us. There's been some discussion of, wouldn't it be great if we could waive activity tickets? Activity tickets, from what I understand from Chris Densland, are not things that we could put on the general fund. So we would have to have some other source of funding for paying for activity tickets. If every single student on free and reduced priced lunch were to want to access a benefit for activity tickets, that would be $43,000. Again, a fairly high ticket. So anyway, I'm looking at this. I think if we're legally allowed to do it, and there's been discussion of, wouldn't it be nice if we could, I think it's worth considering.
So I think the thing with the activity fee is that sustains the activities department.
Right.
So it wouldn't just be that we would have to come up with another way to get them that money so that they could be sustained. It's not just taking that out of a budget. It's actually, we would have to.
It's revenue.
It's revenue, right, that we would have to come up with for the activities department.
But okay, so to clarify what both of you are saying, Amy, are you saying waiving activity ticket fees for everyone, or waiving for free and reducing for reduced lunch?
Yeah, so I was saying that waiving for free and reducing for reduced. Sorry.
So
and we would have to find I assume that not every middle schooler and high schooler wants an activity ticket.
I guess
if every
the question is that a cost to the district or a loss of revenue? I mean, does the district have to pay for its own activity tickets? I guess is what I'm trying to say.
So there's a couple different things. We're talking the difference between the general fund and the student activity funds. So student activity funds, general funds cannot support those activities. So that's your athletics, that's your clubs. I do want to say, and we apologize, we are already waiving the instrumental rentals. We have been working on getting those so that they're put onto Infinite Campus so that we're waiving them correctly. So I just wanted we should have had asterisks by that. And I apologize that I didn't, Dr. Hawkins asked me to look at it. I did not catch that when, so those are general fund issues. The activity tickets, the yearbooks, the memory books, the music participation fees for all-state festival fees, all those are student activities. They're not required as part of the educational program. It's like participating in football or basketball and so forth. Those are our activities outside of the curriculum. Those go into the 21 fund. The sources of funds for the 21 fund, the student activity fund, are primarily gates, activity tickets, or like yearbook fees, depending on the activity. Did I say gates? And fundraising. I mean, those are the sources. We can't, if we wanted to say waive the activity tickets, which is entrance to all the events, the athletic, and I think some of the cultural events, the plays and so forth, we can't take money from the general fund to offset the loss to the 21 fund.
So then when we've talked about this before, one of the issues then becomes if you waive the student's activity fee for their pass, then you have to up the gate charges, which then makes it more prohibitive for families to actually be able to come and see their students in the things. Because then those tickets for the sporting events or the plays or whatever have to be a higher price in order for the activities to have enough revenue to support themselves.
Isn't there a potential flaw in that logic, though, of the people we want to help with the activity tickets aren't coming right now, so it's not revenue we're getting?
That's what I was, exactly what I was
So
saying. It's not lost revenue.
If you discounted it, then maybe you'd get higher, so then your revenue total would still, I mean, you might turn additional profit, but I don't care about additional profit.
Well, might still be coming. They might, well, right, if they're participating, or they can go to single games. I mean, you don't know. If they're not getting
a lot of the numbers
we
we have to look at here. We don't actually have a way to know.
We'd only be waiving fees for students, not families.
So what I'm saying is if their kids are participating, then we're making it more cost prohibitive for families to come and see their kids. You know what I mean? Because
if we raise,
they could be still participating, whether or not they have an activity pass. Like my daughter's in band and chorus, but does not have an activity pass, just out of choice, but she's still in band and chorus.
Here's what I would like to see, I guess, is, and maybe it's not in this, and I think we talked about this in Allenich before, some way that we could do something to make, just starting with activity tickets as a basic thing, make those accessible for students who might not be able to get them now. Maybe that's not through this exact, but some process to allow them for a discounted ticket or, you know, some way to get folks there who maybe aren't there because they can't, their family's not going to pay $70 for an activity ticket or, you know, the gate fees.
So one of the things that I spoke with our activities director, Mr. Lyles, about following our last board meeting was working with him to brainstorm ideas on how to allow admittance to a game or to an activity or an event for those students who needed to but couldn't afford it. I do think there are ways. In fact, I've seen other systems that have found ways to allow students to be able to attend an event that doesn't necessarily, I mean, as a board, by the way, your analysis was really good, right? It was a good analysis of policy and law and what can be waived and what can't be waived. By the way, just since we're talking about it, the only thing that we cannot waive is the non-resident tuition fee for students who want to tuition into our district. Then there's those 7 items that must be waived, and then there's voluntary, and you're correct, we may waive them. My suggestion is that we can accomplish the board's purpose without necessarily reducing or waiving those fees. And it's your call, but I've begun those conversations with Mr. Lyles, and I think we could bring a proposal to you as a board to suggest, here's the strategies we would suggest to allow admittance to activities and events that doesn't necessarily have to be done through the waiver or reduction of an activity ticket. If it's your preference to do so, that is your purview as a board.
So one of the things that I've been thinking about in all of this is how people access the fee waiver system. So from a public policy perspective, I think people who study poverty would say that you shouldn't be adding an extra application, that like in an ideal world, not the world that we live in, but in an ideal world, you wouldn't have an extra application for fee waiver. If somebody's already been approved for free and reduced price lunch, that ideally policy would say just, you know, like, don't make people check an extra box or jump through an extra set of hoops for something they've already qualified for in order to get free, in order to get to access these benefits. Now, having looked through the Iowa code, it doesn't actually explicitly say that you need to have an application, but it pretty much written as if it assumes that you will have an application process, an annual application process for fee waivers. In any case, my understanding of the way people are accessing waivers right now, both free and reduced price lunch and all of these different waivers that we're talking about, is through Infinite Campus. It's seen at the district office and not seen by any school personnel. So, and the goal of that, my understanding from what Chris has explained, is that the goal would be to have that be sort of removed from the school so the student doesn't need to tell any teacher or any activity director what they're, like what that they are applying for any of these things. They don't have to talk about their family's financial status with anybody within the actual school building, which provides a layer of privacy. It may also provide a layer of bureaucracy that makes it harder. I don't know. I mean, there's pluses and minuses. It sounds like the alternative that you're proposing is something that would involve more of a discrete request within the school building, which has the minus of not removing it from, not being public in a sense. The school has to publicly or ask some adult within the school building for this waiver. On the other hand, it might be easier and pose fewer bureaucratic hoops for the student. I don't know.
Well, again, we haven't, he and I have not had the opportunity to meet and come up with a proposal or maybe a series of proposals. I'm happy to share with the board how I've seen another system handle it. It has its benefits and it has its flaws as well, right? So I worked in another district where the activity tickets were sold, right? And there was not a reduction. But in our activities office, individual admittance tickets were available for pickup for students, or they could pick them up for their family as well. And it really came down to we trust that your need is your need type of basis, because that activities office did not have access to the free and reduced price lunch list, as most buildings would not and should not. And so I suppose there's a potential flaw in the system that could be taken advantage of, but that was how that district chose to make a discrete, accessible option available without having it addressed in the fees list. Again, I'm sure our activities director has experience in other systems. There's other examples I'm sure we could draw from if the board would want us to bring that as a proposal. But again, I reiterate, it is in your purview to simply say, no, we would rather address it through the fees. I would agree with the analysis that I've heard that a reduction in fees, right? So, and I appreciate Director Smith, this one might be $65,000, this one might be $800. I imagine our Madrigal sponsor might feel like $800 is significant to the Madrigal, just as I think our activities office would see $43,000 as significant to their activities. And so there's the potential that regardless of how small that number might seem to us, those activities that don't have an option to generate those funds in another way other than to raise the price of people's admittance to their event may see that as significant also.
I think it would be interesting outside of this. Yes, if you came back thinking about that, I'd support that. One thing I would encourage thought about is a pattern that I think have seen works well in our district of making it so when people buy a ticket, and I've seen this in a couple different places, that you can also volunteer to offset the cost of somebody else's to help deal with the revenue shortfall. I know we use that in celebrations at different places in the district, and I've seen it used in a couple of other places. I mean, if you think that the lunch system we have in place right now does this, that might be an area that has proven to work. I don't know what percentage it works with. But I would be interested in seeing it.
I would like to address the fee waiver being a separate application. The National School Lunch and Breakfast Program under the U.S. Department of Agriculture requires that free and reduced status is private. It's very strict on who can have access to that information. That is what drives whether fees then are waived. So the state of Iowa has said that a parent has a right to decide whether to waive their fees or not. So let's say I'm just going through, I've got a certain situation going on. Lunches are beyond my ability right now to pay, but I really don't want to waive my fees because I don't want anyone else in the district other than the people administering the lunch program to know that I'm going through this hard time. So I get the choice of whether to ask for my fees to be waived. So the DE is very specific that has to be a separate application. Once they sign that, then they give permission through that application, that free and reduced fee waiver, for other people in the district to have that information. So that is then when we go into Infinite Campus and we mark that we have received a fee waiver, and that information is given to the building secretary so that they can then waive the fees or reduce the fees.
Okay, so it is actually all part of one application then, you're saying?
No, it's separate.
Two separate applications that go together.
Right. So the first thing we do is during registration, we ask if they want a free and reduced application mailed. They can say yes or no. They can also say, if you qualify for fees, do you want your fees waived? And if they click yes, then the waiver happens.
Okay. So it's just clicking one button. So it's part of the same process. Even though it's two separate applications.
So that's during registration
on one screen.
In the meantime, then, when we have direct certification come through the state, or we have people file paper applications, we look to see if they have a fee waiver on, if they've clicked that button to have a fee waiver. And if they don't, we send them one with their determination letter to fill out. But at one point long ago, the fee waiver is part of the free and reduced application. And the federal government said, no, that is not acceptable within the program. It has to be a separate application. They are very specific on what is in that free and reduced. So as it's not an extra bureaucracy that we just want to put on parents, but it is the way the system works. They have the right. I'm having trouble. I can't pay for lunch every day, but I can pay my $60 for my yearbook.
In that way, it seems like something like what Dr. Hawkins was saying that's maybe outside of that system would better address needs, because if maybe they didn't sign up for the waiver, but they can't afford to go, to the football game or buy the activity ticket, there might be some other ways around. I'm also not clear. I think what the big unknown, I think Alan kind of said this, is that if what the impact is, because we don't know how many people are paying for activity tickets now that wouldn't be if we don't know all of that. I guess my thought at this point is I would like to see some proposals maybe this summer or something to look at options to give students the opportunity to be engaged in some way. As we think about belonging, and as we heard from all the folks who talked about Hank Hansen, and I know that most of my time, what made me value high school so much was the time I spent in activities and going to activities. So if we can get more students engaged in that way, I think it would be beneficial to our overall sense of belonging.
Yeah. So looking at the categories of things that we are voluntary that we're currently not waiving, I think one is, there are a whole bunch of random extra stuff like parking and things, which is important. But I think it's largely activity tickets. So like attending something. Then there are various fees associated with participating in certain extracurricular activities, like participating in choir, participating in band, not just the instrument rental, but there's a band road cleaning fee, DECA, various things. Each of which the cost impact would be relatively low to the district, but might be high to the particular activity. And then the third category that seems really important that we haven't talked about yet that I'm still confused about is all sorts of what you might call fancy tests. The ones needed for college admission. So PSAT, SAT, AP tests, things like that. And I have been, so as I was doing all of this, like researching today, so that third category, when I look at things online, it looks to me like that the SAT tells you that you can, that through the SAT, you can apply for a waiver of fees. And then they say something like you should talk to your high school counselor about this. And I am really curious about what we're doing. I mean, do we have high school counselors talking to students about how to get a fee waiver from the SAT? So if they're getting the fee waiver already, if the category of students who needs it is already getting their fee waiver from SAT, then obviously the district shouldn't pay for it. I'm just curious about how we're handling that.
Well, the quick answer to your first question was yes, we have counselors working with students on that. How they are doing that, the few questions that have come to me about that would have given me the impression that students were coming to the counselors asking, hey, is this possible? I would have to go out and ask them. I'm not prepared to talk tonight about whether or not that's a proactive part of their speech to either AP students or to students in the junior class meeting about the ACT test or something like. I'm just making up that would seem to be the natural time to do it. I could find out whether or not that's, again, a part of just a standard routine that they have with students. I don't know that off the top of my head, but I do know that they're working with students because of a few questions throughout the years have been raised to me about, hey, this student's asking about this. Do they qualify for free? Do they qualify for reduced? We want to help them out. So I know they're working with students on it, but the how piece, I'm not sure yet.
Perhaps a broad question would be from the board. What are the ways that staff is working to remove barriers and to engage students to increase their sense of belonging when it comes to fees? Because it seems to me, and maybe that would help us. My guess is it's more on an informal basis than a formal policy or procedure that has been set by the district. So perhaps that's a question that we could ask broadly to the staff to come back to us in the future.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I was going to say something similar. I know just from my experience of having kids in various activities that oftentimes the director of that activity will say broadly to the parent group at the parent meeting or whatever, if this fee is an issue for you, please let me know. And they have ways that they're working with families that need assistance. Like Madrigal is a great example of that. So I think the individual programs are also addressing this in the ways that they are able within their own budgets as an activity, right? Because they manage their own budgets. Well, kind of. I don't want to give them this impression.
Just thinking about down the road when we get to items from staff, would you mind capturing the wording of that? Maybe shoot me an email with exactly I appreciate the broad question. I just want to make sure that I answer.
Yeah, I will. I think we need to create a general understanding because I'm watching the two people next to me that have kids who have gone through high school, and we are all shaking our heads because we've personally experienced this with, so perhaps creating a better understanding. But yes, I'll
thank you.
Try to remember what I said.
Including, things that aren't even on this fee list of fees, providing opportunities for kids to participate by track shoes or track cleats. And so I really want to give kudos to the teachers who are involved in these activities, that they do really work tirelessly to ensure that our kids can participate. And we're only seeing a very small portion of the costs that kids have to participate. And every meeting I've ever been to, there are opportunities for parents to donate if they can, and there's opportunities for kids to get used to items if they can so they can participate. I think it's rare that a kid would feel excluded for those because of need-based basis and activities. I did have a question on process. The motion before us is to approve this fee schedule for next year. Does that limit the ability, if we vote tonight, does it limit the ability to waive fees as you create different strategies to do that for certain people?
You mean, could we revisit it? Is that the question?
No, my question is, can we still vote on this motion and still examine ways that we might be able to reduce or eliminate fees for free and reduced lunch people.
Because I think what Dr. Hawkins had said was to eliminate barriers and what are ways rather than going through the fee schedule. So
the fee
was going to propose strategies that would not alter the fee schedule.
Right.
Yeah.
So we can still vote on this motion for the fees for next year.
Yeah, as I've listened to the discussion, what I anticipate is strategies to allow students to go to and attend an event. I think we will probably find multiple examples of strategies that the board might find acceptable. I think what may be a little bit more complicated are when like the robe cleaning fee or the jacket cleaning fee. So I'm allowed to participate in the activity. There's no barrier for that. And I get a robe, but that robe is going to be cleaned and the cleaning fee is a barrier. That one will probably be more of a challenge. But I think I appreciate Lyle, first of all, the suggestions of strategies. And Lyle and I can try to come back to the board and figure out, okay, so if it's not about letting someone in to an event, but it's rather covering for like a cleaning fee, what strategies might we have for that? That one will be more of a challenge.
I would echo what Elisa said. Is if you check with staff who are currently doing that, I bet you they have some strategies they're already using.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious about what, this is just a curious, it's not a very well-formed thought right now. I'm curious about which strategies create least stigma and fewest barriers. I can see arguments from an equity perspective, from like thinking about what I know about poverty and public policy. I can see arguments for doing it informally and arguments for doing it formally. I don't know that I'm not suggesting there's one way we need to go. I just think it's something we should be thinking about. Maybe doing it informally by teachers just saying, come talk to me if you need help, we'll find a way to cover your fees. Maybe that is actually the kindest and most inclusive way to do this. Or maybe it's not, and I really don't know.
I think
and I think the hardship of that is that's really dependent upon the person who's living that experience, and different people may feel differently about different strategies.
Yeah, of course.
So I think we can probably come forward with some of our strategies as well as a report on our practices, and some of those strategies might feel pretty inclusive and non-stigmatizing to some folks, and that exact same strategy may feel very differently to someone else in a similar situation. So I think that's the challenge of that.
I think any incremental change, like incremental, increase in access, we're not going to get it all perfect every time. So.
Well, I'm going to ask an embarrassing question, JD, because I forgot to write down who made the motion and who seconded it. Thank you. All right. So it was moved by Franzen, seconded by Becker to approve the 23-24. I'm sorry, Beerbaum.
It was
You
me.
just
It
said
was
it.
Becker.
It was.
Okay.
Okay. I think that was what I was thinking. Okay, sorry. Moved by Franzen, seconded by Becker. I should have just trusted my gut. To approve the 23-24 school fees as presented. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. All right, moving on to our student representative board and staff items. We'll start with you, Ritika.
I don't have much to say today, but as it's our last board meeting of the school year, I just wanted to thank the board of just having this position here and giving the opportunity to students to have this position. And Will left for a band concert, but we also wanted to say the same. So it's been an honor serving on the board, and I hope to see this position prosper in the future.
Thank you. It's been such a thrill to have you both on the board. We've really appreciated your perspective and your voices and your time and energy. It's a lot.
Thank you.
All right. Items from the board. Elisa, do you want to go with the request for staff?
This is what I recalled saying. If you can, the question would be, how are we removing barriers for students to ensure they can participate in our effort to create a sense of belonging?
That's why I think, how are we removing them, and what are the proposals for further?
And so that was Elisa's,
That was
Elisa's
mine. Oh, okay.
question that Jeff had asked her to note. And then on top of that would be strategies for, and I'm going to kind of pull from things that both Kelly and Amy Erica said, strategies for helping students be able to participate and attend activities to increase sense of belonging and sense of community within the schools.
Mhm.
Anything else I missed? All right. Other items from the board?
Looking forward to graduation. It's always a highlight for the board.
It is. It is. All right. And items from the superintendent?
Yes, really quickly. First, I wanted to say thank you to the members of our school community who came in and shared concerns about our budgeting process. And just to let everybody know, I'll be sending communication, working with Amy on that, to clear up some of the misinterpretations and misinformation related to our process, just in an effort to provide greater clarity for folks. So that's forthcoming. The second thing was related to the elimination of AP courses at the high school. And if I could have you, Dr. Hawkins, speak to that briefly. Appreciate it.
So I have spoken with Mr. Damron, who is, of course, the acting principal as well as the master scheduler. He's been working with all the departments, including those that are having a proposed cut in staffing. The only AP course that he's spoken with me about, not a reduction, but a rotation, is that of AP biology. So I heard in the conversation tonight a question and concern about AP math courses or AP chemistry. According to Mr. Damron, those are to be run fully. I heard concern, this is not AP, so if I'm drifting too much, you let me know, that we might be not able to offer all the French. That's not the case. There's a strategy to offer all the French for next year. But there is a potential impact to AP biology. In case the board wants to know, there are currently, there are currently 53 students signed up for AP biology. 22 of those students are seniors. So we did process a few different strategies when it came to that course. But to get back to your question, Dr. Lawson, there is not this idea that there won't be any AP courses or there will be a broad reduction of AP courses at the high school. That's not what the master scheduler nor acting principal of the high school would say. And by the way, the strategy being employed is the suggestion of the teachers that he's working with from each of those departments.
May I ask a question?
We actually can't.
No,
I'm sorry. We
I
can't have any
didn't
discussion.
understand what he said.
So to repeat, there may be an impact on AP biology next year, but the plan would be to rotate the offerings of AP biology, AP chemistry, and AP physics so that there's not a sustained impact on any one AP class, in case that's helpful.
Thank you.
Yes. AP biology, by the way, does correlate to PSEO courses or concurrent enrollment courses if we wanted to pursue that as a strategy.
It sounds like there's enough.
We can't discuss it. Sorry.
Is it okay?
No, items from the superintendent. So.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to suggest.
Is there anything else I could answer for you?
No, sir.
Okay, very good.
All right, then moving on to the board planning calendar. Our next board meeting will be June 5th. I cannot believe we're in June already. And we'll have a work session at that meeting. Any questions or comments on the board planning calendar? Okay, then I will entertain a motion on closed session.
I move the board hold a closed session as provided in section 21.51I of the open meetings law to evaluate the professional competency of an individual whose appointment, hiring, performance, or discharge is being considered when necessary to prevent needless and irreparable injury to that individual's reputation, and that individual has requested a closed session.
Second. Moved by Franzen, seconded by Winfrey. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. So we will take a 3-minute recess and reconvene in closed session. And then we will
here. We're going over there.
We'll go over to conference room C, I think. And then we'll return here to adjourn, but we will not have any action taken after this closed session.